Hi, Dr. Nikita Vizniak here with the amazing.
Dr. Catherine Chung,
And today we are going to be going through what diet, Dr. Chung?
the anti-Candida diet.
All right.
And
And of
this is a therapeutic diet. I will start off with
Nice.
that.
Yeah, very important for people to realize that. Not a
Yeah,
sustainable long-term diet by any means. Of
right.
course, this information is all coming from our evidence-informed nutrition text. 3 steps to feeling better. You can do it. We can help.
We can help.
And eating for optimal health. Dr. Chung especially can help. She is excellent at all of this stuff. So,
Thank
anti-Candida
you.
diet. I'll go down our diets right here. And I should mention again, Dr. Chung is a major contributor to this text as well. That'll be on page 84, clicking us to it. All right. What do we need to know, Dr. Chung?
First and foremost is that, again, this is a therapeutic diet. I only really prescribe it for about 3 weeks for patients, and 3 weeks is quite long. I've put myself through this before. It's not a fun time. And the reason why it's very limited and not sustainable is because it's pretty much very carb low, like 1%
Mhm.
carb and sugar free. And that we've talked about this in our
Wow.
introductory nutrition videos that you need carbs to live. You need carbs for very important physiological functions. Same with sugar, right? So that's why this is not sustainable at all in a long term.
Yeah. How long would you typically recommend someone that actually is on this diet if they're trying it?
I would say 2 to 3 weeks max.
Yeah.
Nothing more, nothing less. You got to give it 100% shot. It's one of those all or nothing diets, but definitely no more than 3 weeks. I would say if you're half-assing it, so you're, oops, can I say that?
You can totally
Half-assing
say
it.
that. Yeah.
If you're half-assing it at like, I don't know, like 85%, fine. Like you are gonna have those carbs and those sugars in you, so you could probably push it to like 6, but I wouldn't do it for any longer than that.
All right, let's make sure we understand the issue or the theorized issue that people might have here. So, what is happening with this candida issue?
The candida issue is where you have an overgrowth of candida, which is yeast, it's fungi, which naturally is in the microbiome. But if you are taking certain medications, most notably antibiotics,
Hmm.
and you're just killing off a lot of that bacteria, it gives the fungi the chance to overgrow,
Hmm.
and that will lead to a lot of gut inflammation, bloating, gas, leaky gut, food sensitivities, foggy mind, foggy brain, or even just like a lot of sinus congestion. So those are like the top 6, 7 symptoms that you will experience if you have a candida overgrowth or if your
Hmm.
patients are experiencing that. And that's where a lot of people are just like, I feel so uncomfortable. Like, and I feel like I'm getting more food sensitivities every
Hmm.
day. Like
Hmm.
yesterday I could eat an apple, today I can't. I find that food sensitivities on their own don't really exist. It's usually due to something, and
Hmm.
candida is one of them.
Yeah, nice. And I think a lot of people don't realize the importance of your body's natural extracellular, so not your own cells, but other bacteria and yeast and everything that naturally grow on your skin, on your mucous membranes. It takes weeks and months potentially to establish a normal flora and fauna, and that can change depending on even the people who you're exposed to, the environment that you're in. All of this stuff is crucially important and it doesn't get enough attention for most people, or they're
Oh,
not even aware of it.
100%. Well, yeah, exactly. I was reading a study recently where bifido-only type of bacteria
Mhm.
create GABA, which is a
Neurotransmitter.
nutrient that works like a neurotransmitter, right?
Yep.
So if you're around and you're super stressed, that bacteria doesn't get a chance to thrive, and then you're constantly in this battle of having lower GABA levels,
Hmm.
and that's just based on bacteria levels itself, right? So there's a huge impact on exactly what you're saying, mood and also the people around you and the stressors, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's go ahead back on this anti-candida diet
Mhm.
here. What am I looking at for my foods permitted? What am I allowed to do?
Foods permitted is pretty much things that are very low in sugar,
Hmm.
very low in carbohydrates, and high in everything else. So you can eat all your fats that you want, high quality proteins,
Hmm.
non-starchy vegetables, low sugars of fruits, so the citrus ones, lemons and limes. So you're really focusing on proteins, fats, and if you hear that, then that's very similar to a keto diet,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's an
absolutely.
extreme keto diet essentially.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then if we go to foods to avoid, of course, it's going to be the sugar content is what we're trying to minimize because the yeast just grows on that like crazy. But what else?
A lot of gluten-containing grains, just because the gluten-containing grains will create a lot of inflammation, but there is a lot of sugar in grains itself, and that's why we're really reducing those. Things that people don't really think about are condiments. There are a lot of added
Hmm.
sugar in condiments, especially store-bought condiments, which is why we say absolutely no to those. And the
I'll
other
just
thing that
stop you
people
right there. I
don't,
just got to stop you for 1 second. I
okay,
love
yeah.
condiments, and people don't realize, whatever you're eating, all your sauces and everything, how much sugar is put in that for you to actually. Why do you like them so much? They're packed full of sugar and fat in that ratio of 1 to 1 that everybody loves. Okay. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Well, and I know this is a little off topic, but even baby formula, like they
Hmm.
put sugar in that. They start you off real young
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
get hooked on that sugar, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I digress. Um, but things that people don't actually think about is actually dairy. Lactose is
Hmm.
the sugar,
Yeah.
right? So that's why dairy is on there. It's not necessarily because of it being inherently dairy and inflammatory. It's actually the lactose in it that causes more of the issues.
Hmm.
And then just empty calorie stuff, beer, alcohol, like they naturally have sugars in them too. This is why this is not an extremely sustainable diet, because you're cutting out a lot of healthy things, but
Hmm.
these healthy things just have a lot of sugar in them.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So then we're looking at low and moderation foods, starchy vegetables, things like that, low sugar fruits, of course.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. And how I kind of tell my patients what low moderation really means is out of those four things that we've listed there, just choose one, and you can only eat one serving that in that one day.
Nice.
So, for example, squash, if you decide to have butternut squash for lunchtime, literally you can't have anything else for the rest of the day, kind of thing. And the
Hmm.
reason why we do that is because you still need a bit of carb and you still need a bit of sugar to survive, but we're really trying to starve out the yeast. That's what essentially what we're doing. We're starving that out. But exactly what Dr. Nick was saying, where there's this balance between the intracellular and extracellular nutrients required and feeding required. So if you're starving out the yeast, you're going to be starving out yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And then we look at the symptoms. Like a lot of people, you mentioned them earlier on in our discussion here, but there's even the potential where you can see the Candida overgrowth orally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Orally or vaginally, right?
Hmm.
And usually when I see that in patients, I'm like, okay, there's a dysbiosis happening. We got to do something about that. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's like we always think of it as digestive or orally or like skin wise, but sometimes it's like fatigue, headaches, and a lot of sinus congestion. Sometimes those are just the keys or the clues that show that you do have a candida issue.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, especially when they get vague symptoms like that, it can take a long time to actually get a correct diagnosis or even walk your way through and find yourself into trying out this diet as a way to resolve those symptoms, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. So main uses here. What are we looking at for this anti-Candida diet?
Well, pretty much it's the intestinal candida overgrowth or any candida overgrowth happening either skin or internally.
Hmm.
That one's more straightforward. And then there is IBD, intestinal or irritable bowel disease.
Hmm.
So that's Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, IBS. You can probably throw into that as well.
Hmm.
Essentially, it's some type of irritation along the gut lining. And if there's inflammation created by candida and there's an immune response created by candida, then of course it's going to be worsening these bowel diseases, right? So that's why there's a therapeutic use in that sense as well. Not for everyone. You do want to properly diagnose it, and then that's where a lot of the comprehensive stool analysis comes from,
Hmm.
or even just a simple blood test to see if you have candida.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So what are the risks associated with this diet?
The risk is that at the beginning, you will have some type of die-off reaction,
Hmm.
meaning that you will feel a little bit sick. You might feel like a flu is coming on. You feel
Hmm.
really fatigued. All those things will come in, but those things should resolve within 3 or 4 days of being on that diet. It's just the first initial ones.
Hmm.
When we're looking at long-term risks of this diet is the development of just having orthorexia or just development of having a really restrictive, non-nutritive diet. And that's
Hmm.
something I always warn my patients around. It's just like, don't get too strung up on this. Don't get too focused on trying to kill this thing off. And that's why I like to kind of focus on or add in a lot of the supplementation stuff
Yeah.
to aid in the killing off of the candida. because sometimes it's not enough. The diet is not enough, and research has shown that diet isn't enough sometimes,
Hmm.
and that you want to add in other things. That just makes it a little bit more successful, cuts down the time, prevents the constant routine of restricting your diet to become an issue. And that's why, again, I leave it to the 3 weeks as well, because it takes 3 weeks for a routine to become relatively more permanent in your life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So if I can restrict it to the 3 weeks, then it doesn't become a normalized thing in your life. You're like, okay, 3 weeks, we're done, go back to something else.
Hmm. Yeah, excellent. I mean, you're talking about the supplementation. I am a huge fan of garlic. You're not going wrong with the garlic there, right? You might not want to get too
Right.
close to people when you're in high dosing, but yeah, the garlic is going to be great. All
Hey,
right,
if they
so
love you, they'll accept the garlic
they'll
breath
accept the
anyways.
garlic, absolutely. Okay. All right, so here we have just a sample of what the plate might look like, and of course, things that you're going to want to avoid. Anything else you want to add to this diet here, Dr. Chung? Or just recap some
Um,
of the key points we should get from it?
yeah, recapping is not sustainable. It is very therapeutic,
Hmm.
and it is all or nothing. Pretty much, if you're gonna put yourself through this, you want to do it 100% and cut it off at that 3 weeks. Is not worth doing it more longer than that, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, and 3 weeks is doable. If you're really going to see a result from this, like you said, you've got to give it an honest chance for you to see those results.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
Dr. Chung, thank you very much for your expertise today, and we'll see you on the next video.
Thank you. Have a good
Bye.
one.